My guest is Dr. Jeffrey B. Rubin. He wears many hats, but among them, psychotherapist and author. And he joins us now to talk about some financial stresses and things that we can do about them in our lives, particularly when financial stress turns dangerous. Dr. Rubin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about your work as an author. You do have a slew of books out there, but two in particular, I think of note. One is psychotherapy case studies, and this is very readable, very digestible. These are actually stories, right?
Yeah. I felt that one of the things we need now is grounded hope. We have some people that are kind of relentlessly optimistic, no matter what, things will work out, and that sometimes gets foiled. And then we have people right now who are feeling kind of paralyzing pessimism. And so I wanted to show people where hope might lie. And so I kind of dug deep into stories over many, many years, very disguised stories of actual things that happen in psychotherapy. So that's the book, Psychotherapy Case Studies, Escaping the Prison You Didn't Know You Were In.
And another book that you want to talk about, are you able to talk about the second book that we talked about before we went on the air?
Yes. The second book is called Meditative Psychotherapy and Psychoanalysis Pathways to Healing and Transformation. Those of you who have a little bit more interest in meditation, yoga, that kind of thing, it's how we might bring together Asian psychology and Western therapy in a very concrete and accessible way. Those also contain stories, they also contain explanations, and it comes out of many, many decades of feeling like Asian psychology and Western psychotherapy had something valuable to teach each other. And when they were brought together, they were richer than if either one was pursued alone.
I love the way you just encapsulated that. And we're finding these days that more and more people are accepting what was termed alternative medicine, especially back in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yes, yes, yes. When I first started doing this, it was the 70s, and you had to keep it hidden. People on the meditative side weren't really pro therapy. People on the therapy side kind of looked askance at meditation, those kind of things. It's very mainstream now. Meditation in elementary schools, meditation for mental health, meditation in sports, all of that. So I'm trying to bring together on the deepest level, how do you actually integrate the wisdom of Asian psychology, because it has a whole different psychology than Western therapy. And how do you bring together that with the wisdom in Western therapy? Because there's a lot of wisdom obviously in our own culture too.
And for those in our listening audience who, equate meditation with a specific religion, that's just simply not the case, right?
Not the case. Yeah, you can be a theist, you can be Catholic, you can be Christian, you could be fundamentalist, you could be devout, you could be agnostic, you could be atheist. Yeah, it's simply a tool to explore yourself, meditation. It's a way of becoming calmer, more present, more clear, but it works together perfectly. And there are books on this also. It works perfectly, whatever your faith tradition is, please obviously continue it, and you can add meditation or yoga on it. It doesn't get in the way because it's not linked to religion at all.
And it's interesting because I know a lot of people, specifically in the education sector, call it mindfulness. And that seems to allay some of the religious concerns that some people have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it just means presence-centered, non-judgmental awareness. You're exercising it right now, actually, as you're listening, just trying to understand what Christine and I are saying, no judgment, you're exercising it. When you're listening to your favorite music and you're really immersed in your music, you're doing meditative listening. If you're hitting a tennis ball, if you're sewing, and if you're cooking, any activity that you love, listening to your kids or your partner, listening and you're really present, that's being mindful.
So, the topic at hand today is financial stress, and it's something that more and more people are feeling, despite the fact that as of this week, the stock market has hit a record high again. Many people are feeling very real financial pressure. That stock market number does not necessarily translate for most people to financial ease. And a lot of people are stressed. The grocery store, the gas pump, the cost of everyday living. One of my children one time said to me when they were much younger, Mom, I can't believe that it costs so much just to be alive in the United States. And that pressure for so many is so very real now. And there was a recent report that argues that one of the strongest suicide prevention tools is a paycheck. That to me seems very not just interesting, but scary on some
Yeah.
respects.
Yeah.
Let's kind of break this down. How serious are these financial stresses that people are feeling?
Yes, that's great, and it leads to another question that we can talk about also. Yeah, I think they're very, very real. I think we need to make a distinction between what's said publicly, sometimes what's in the news, and our own actual experience, our own experience at the dinner table, our own experience in our homes, where you may have to make a choice between medicine or food, or you can't take a day off. Your partner is in the hospital, or your mother-in-law is in the hospital, and you can't take a day off. You're frightened that you'll lose your job, and everything is very precarious, and your partner was just let go. So I think for many, for some, things are going well, and I'm happy for them actually. But for many, it's really touch and go. It's much more of a struggle. And so the first that leads us to the first sort of positive quality we need, which is patience and compassion towards ourselves if we're going through struggling times. It's easy to feel guilt. It's easy to feel judgment. It's easy to feel shame. The first thing is to understand you're not alone, and it's scary and it's painful.
I think for people, especially for parents, it is embarrassing, not only for yourself, but to struggle as a parent because there's that feeling that you're not able to adequately provide for your children. Those are some toss and turn nights. Those are some really stressful days. And especially when your children are, I mean, children are impressionable at many ages, but that, preteen, teenage years, it's extremely stressful for both the children, but also the parents. But it's not just parents who are feeling the stress, right? It's kind of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, it's everybody. And so we have to do something that we're able to do, but sometimes it's hard. We have to not let this divide us, but help bring us together, bring families together, bring couples together, realize that it's just really hard, and then band together. What can we do? But going back one half a beat, what Kristine said is really important. Money is not just money. It looks like just money, but it's not just money. It's a symbol of things. It's a symbol of I'm making it. It's a symbol of I'm good enough. And it's not easy, but we have to unlink these two things and figure out what to do about the money, the tightness in our money situation, but not let it go over into self-esteem, um, create self-judgment, guilt, shame, all of that. And I know that's easier said than done, but we have to fight to do that.
So, and you talked about the shame. People do feel shame. People do feel isolation when they can't provide for themselves and for their families. So, if somebody in our listening audience is going through this right now and they are feeling shame, they are
Right.
feeling isolation, even if it's because nobody knows that they are financially stressed, what can they do to kind of pull themselves out of this feeling of shame? And then also, what should other people around them, what should we do to not unintentionally put shame on somebody without asking their financial situation?
Great questions. I hear a few different possible answers within that question. Number one, for us who's going through the person going through it, to try not to attack themselves, to try not to go down the rabbit hole of feeling worthless, contemptible, etc. But to realize you've had a setback. There's a hole in the road. You have to drive around it. You have to work with it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is for those around, this is really important and tricky, not to give false reassurances. Not to say, don't worry, honey, it's going to be okay, because that misses where the person is who feels the shame. Person who feels the shame feels like they've let everybody down. They feel as if they're a failure. They feel as if they didn't do their job well, and they feel contemptuous, contemptible. And so false reassurances won't do it. It'll make them actually feel more alienated and it will shut them down. One of the things that happens, I think, when people feel shame is they feel it's transparent. They feel everyone can see through them and sees that they're horrible. And then they isolate. And then when you isolate, it's easier for the whole thing to expand in your mind and to feel more and more humiliated. And so you want to, in a way, go into the opposite direction and see if you can lean into it. First, try to accept that you've been thrown a curveball. It's very, very hard, but you're not terrible. You haven't let everybody down, and then reach out for help. Lean on your partner, lean on friends. Don't, I know it's hard, and it's especially maybe harder for men who were taught from a very early age, don't show your dirty laundry in public, but it's important to work together on this, not to face this alone.
One of the things that you have said is that financial stress can become psychologically dangerous. Are we overstating things or is it really dangerous?
No, it can be dangerous. I mean, it can lead on the ultimate level to suicide. I've let my family down. I'm a failure. I don't deserve to live. That's the worst case. And it doesn't have to go there, but sometimes it does go there. No, it's one of the greatest attackers of our self-esteem. It's often psychologically devastating. And that's not because you were weak, that's because of the way we're raised. Self-esteem is very merged with financial security and the amount of money you have and then comparing yourself with the neighbors and relatives and all the rest. So, yeah, financial struggles are emotionally devastating for most people.
So you've said what people shouldn't say, it's going to be okay. It's going to, everything is going to work out. Um, as people listening drive to and from places here in Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia, you see a wide range of things on the drive into work in the morning. You see homeless people, you see exquisite luxury vehicles. Sometimes you even see, private jets and planes and things like that as you're on your way to work. So you see the gamut of emotional, I mean, financial situations and people living just all kinds of lives. You've gone over what people shouldn't say. What should people say? What should we say when we see someone who's financially struggling and it's obvious that they're struggling? Obviously, we don't want to say everything's going to be okay. If someone has gone through something similar, is it helpful for them to say, I was where you are, or does that just hurt things even more?
Great questions. The first thing is, I'm really sorry. So, to empathize with what the person may be going through emotionally, I'm really, really sorry. And I care, and I got your back. I'm here with you. I'm not going to let you go through this alone. And then you ask, is there anything that I can do? What would be helpful? You let them lead rather than hitting them with too much positivity that goes nowhere and makes them feel you don't get it.
Dr. Rubin, is there such a thing as I think some people, when you say, hey, I've got your back, or I've been there, or you're going to make it through this, or whatever, I think they respond in a very negative, even angry way. Sometimes saying, you don't know my situation, or, I have X, Y, and Z happening. You never dealt with that. How do you counter that short of saying, well, I'm going to give you a check for $100,000 to make all of your problems go away, which we know is not the thing that's going to make all the problems go away. What can people do?
Well, the second someone says that to me, no, you don't understand. Okay, help me understand because it's one of the most important things in the universe for me is right now understanding. This is the same thing when you're parenting a teenager and they say you don't get it at all. Okay, what help me understand what I don't get. So I would slow down, back up a little bit, and I would ask them to tell you what it's like for them, and then ask what can I do? What do you need? What can I do? There are a bunch of things that are going wrong on the side of the other person, and maybe we should go back a beat and talk about that. Number one, their financial loss can reactivate old vulnerabilities, right? So if you grew up dirt poor, if you grew up and there was one parent working, or one parent lost a job, or one parent died, or one parent got sick, and you knew what it was like, to have one potato at dinner, or, you know what I mean, just to, have one meal a day, this can get reactivated when you're having crises, financial crises, or challenges now. So the first thing the person who's going through it can do is try to and I guess person near them can also do, is unlock what's going on from the emotional meaning of it. Because often they're merged together and then it just feels overwhelming. There's just too much coming at you. So to realize money is not just money, it means something, and then to figure out what does it mean to you. And you could say, what does the law, apart from the money, what does the loss of this of the job or your income, what does it mean to you right now? Well, I've actually, failed. I've obviously failed my family, or and you get them talking, and then and you just listen and help them really see the situation, maybe in a wider frame. People often identify who they are with what their money situation is, and they're always much broader. They're not just their money, they're the way they parent, the way they are a spouse, the way they are in the community. But we have a very narrow identity. So that's another problem. Everything narrows under crises, and the person can't see anything except for panic and doom. So if you can help them slow that down, and you can help them look at the situation, and then you can work together to problem solve, that can often be helpful too.
What are some of the warning signs that financial stress is becoming more serious and a deeper emotional crisis?
Isolation, not talking about what's going on. You see the person's radically altering their normal routine. They go to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and they say, I don't care about it. They don't shower. They start to, wear the same clothes every day. So it's isolation, losing their mojo. You see that their mood is very, very dire. These kinds of things.
Are there some more subtle signs? So, say, for example, you have a single parent who has to do this on their own and can't let their children see that they're going through some emotional and financial and what for them is a very deeply psychological stress, but they can't let anybody see it. Are those signs maybe a little bit more difficult to spot?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they are. And one sign is that your mood changes. You start to get angry more immediately at the drop of a hat. You start being more impatient with your teenage kids. You're hostile. It's hostility, impatience. It's a mood someone can feel who's going through it. You know that everything gets you upset. You're in a 7-Eleven and it's taking a long time, and then you want to yell at the person, the checkout person. So it's noticing that the mood and the way you treat people is getting worse and worse and worse.
And it's really difficult to get out of that cycle, right? Because once people are in it, then almost every little thing sets them off, and it just seems like they're just going to keep going in that cycle. Is there a way, aside from the financial pressures being relieved, is there a way for them to kind of pop themselves out of that cycle?
Yeah, I mean, one is that if they feel you're really, really with them, it makes it easier. It doesn't get rid of the reality of it, but part of the fantasy, I realized this a few years ago. There are three things that go along with whatever emotions we have. One is the fantasy, this is never going to go away. Number two is the fantasy, nobody else is going through this. And number three is the fantasy is I am transparent and you can see my worthlessness right away. I walk outside, my neighbors can see it. I go to the store, you go to work, you go to the gym, you're transparently horrible to everyone. None of those things are actually true. The feeling may not always be there. Here, think of it this way. You have a migraine headache, and part of the migraine headache is the fantasy it's never going to go away. But if I could convince you that it will not always be here, in fact, it probably will not be here in 3 hours, it probably won't be here next morning, right away your relationship changes to it in the present. Because instead of tightening around it, making it worse, you feel terrible about it, but you can relax behind that. This is something that meditation, by the way, and yogic breathing can cultivate. A little bit of space. You have the same situation, but you hold it differently. You react to it differently. You have perspective. The second thing that no one else is going through that, absolutely not true. This is the problem with isolation, though. We don't realize that our neighbors may be going through it, even our neighbors that have very nice cars or very nice houses, that many other people are privately going through this. Not everyone, and not the people that are benefiting from the stock market. Again, I'm happy for them, but the rest of the population, many, many, many are going through exactly this in different levels, but they're going through this. So to realize that is helpful, and to realize not everyone, it's not transparent. They can't see inside of you to what you're really feeling. All those things relieve a little bit of the pressure inside.
My guest is Dr. Jeffrey V. Rubin. He is a practicing psychologist and psychotherapist and the author of 8 books. Am I right about that? 8 books.
Yeah.
The latest of which are psychotherapy case studies, escaping the prison you didn't know you were in, and meditative psychotherapy and psychoanalysis, pathways to healing and transformation. Has the way that employers, educators, the medical community changed when we talk about mental health in a positive way, in your opinion?
One positive aspect of it is it's more out there in the culture. So if an NFL player or an NBA player or a WNBA player admits they have mental health challenges, they're not as scapegoated as they would have been years ago. I see this as a positive development. I also see trends in mental health that I don't love, which is the increasing focus on cognitive solutions. Like, your thinking is catastrophic, just change your thinking. Not so easy sometimes. And then people actually, they have a new frenemy, which is shame that they can't get rid of what's bothering them. But it's not their fault. These things may have been years in the making, patterns that came from our family of origin. You may have loved your parents, but still there were some patterns that made it difficult. Then they play themselves out as an adult. So to not vilify yourself, try to not vilify yourself or blame yourself for your struggles in living. Otherwise, you end up secretly feeling more guilty that you have a pain and that you have struggles.
Are there things that employers can do in the way that they handle things like basic communication, layoffs? I've heard a couple of weeks ago of somebody who got laid off by a text. So that had to have been jarring. And this was somebody who had just had a stellar performance evaluation. Are there things that employers can do to assist in this realm?
Yeah, and the biggest one is the people at the top can ask themselves, when is enough enough? There was a writer in the 50s, Eric Hoffer, wrote a book, True Believer. I read this book in high school, and it was about fascism and it was about cults. And he said, you can never get enough of what you don't need to make you happy. So sometimes, if people at the top who had sufficient amounts could take a little less and spread it around to people that they would have let go of right away, that would help thousands of people. Thousands of people. How much? So just to ask, how much is enough? Are your kids okay? Are your kids are safe? Is your husband or wife okay? They're all okay. I have a lot saved. Then to really have a little bit of empathy that the people coming to your place of work have worked hard, they've had pride, they've tried to support your company, and there's a lack of loyalty in the culture right now, and it's like meanness is misconstrued as strength. And there's a forgetting of the Gospels in the culture right now, if I may say that. Go reread the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It's about love. It's not about cruelty masquerading as strength. And I'm sorry to go in this direction, but if we had a little bit more kindness, empathy, and compassion for each other, if we pulled each other up, we would all be significantly better. It would just take a shift in perspective. We have the resources, it's not impossible, but we have to have more warm-heartedness and less hard-heartedness.
Does that help the individual as well who is conveying that sentiment? Does have
Yes, because you realize when I see cruelty now, and because I'm immersed in trying to create, in the little ways I can, a culture of more warm-heartedness, when I see heartlessness, which I frankly see everywhere, and this isn't a sides thing. You could look at any part of the political aisle. It's everywhere. It pervades the culture. It's not every one, but it's everywhere. I had someone say to me yesterday, "Yeah, but this is not true in the Midwest." I said, "Yes, it is. It's true. I could give you an example. It's true everywhere, but it's just true of, West Coast and East Coast. No, it's pervading the culture. If we have more warm-heartedness, then we're more warm-hearted when people are cruel. You understand they too are doing the best they can, but they're misguided. They were probably mistreated, abused, traumatized, and they can't help themselves. So it brings more patience to the people that are driving quickly, the people that cut you off in 7-Eleven, the people that are hostile. You don't have to respond in kind. You can say, "Thank you. I hope you have a better day," and not immerse, not feed the fire. I keep thinking of feeding the fire. We have to fight throwing more logs in the fire. Everybody's throwing more logs in the fire. There's a whole other way. There's a whole other way of living.
Oh my gosh, but I want to get the last word in all the time, Like I'm sure that's what people are thinking. Not healthy.
It's okay sometimes. Get your last word in and then listen to their last word and then give them a hug.
Okay. I think some people are going to love that and some people are
Some
going to
people
be
are going to hate that. It's okay. It's
the,
okay.
hu- the hug might be a step
Yeah.
too far. I had
Yeah.
read a statistic the other day about internal monologues because I, you know, in these conversations, people know that I'm a reporter and a journalist. And so we tend to have, conversations when trying to go for a walk. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe so and so said this. Let's talk for the next hour and a half about this subject while I'm trying to enjoy a walk. And somebody had said, most people do not have an internal monologue. And so they're mean or judgmental because they don't have an internal monologue. And I said, that can't be true. Most people don't have an internal monologue. How is that possible? I can't stop the monologues happening in my brain on any given day. Number one, is that true that many or most people don't have an internal monologue? And regardless of, how many people do, what does the absence of having an or not having an internal monologue do to your level of compassion and also your ability to rebound from whether it's financial stress or any kind of stress? And I understand that's a loaded question. There were like 14,000 questions in there, but
It's okay. It's okay. First of all, it's tricky to judge someone else's mind, what goes on inside. I like to stay away from that if I can. Just like I don't like to judge other relationships. You really don't know what's going on. You can think you know, but do you really know? I'm not sure you do. But let's just play with this idea a little bit. They have no internal monologue. I'm dubious, but as I try to empathize with someone who said that, what comes to mind is they're mistaking monologue for conscience, or someone who says that someone else has no internal monologue. I think they're mistaking. They're thinking monologue is conscience. I think there are people right now that have no conscience, have no shame, can do stuff without any awareness that there's any. They think they're the center of the universe, and then they think there's no one else. And then again, I think some people see this as strength because a lot of us are feeling lost. This gets in a way to the psychology of authoritarianism. A lot of people right now are feeling lost, uncertain. All the old certainties about religion and culture and all sorts of things are turned upside down. So, in the face of feeling uncertainty and loss, it's eager to want to grab onto something that purports to give us security and safety. It doesn't, and it may not really be something that'll be kindly back or supportive to us, but it's reassuring at least. And so I think a lot of people now don't have, there's not an internal conscience. There's not an awareness that as you go, so as you fare, so fare I. There's just, let me grab mine. And if everybody does that, we just have a culture where everybody's trying to grab theirs, which is part of what we see right now. And then we complain the insurance company just raised the rates and the dentist raised the rates and this one, and then we have to charge, and it's just a dog eat dog way. There is a whole other way than that. But right now that's going on. So I think people do have internal monologues are just internal thoughts, feelings, and fantasies that people say to themselves. And so I think the people who say people don't have it are mistaking. What they're really saying is, I don't think that person has an internal North Star. I don't think they have an internal conscience. That's what I think they're saying.
That's interesting. Is there a way out? So say somebody is feeling, the brunt of the meanness right now, and they've lost their job and they're paying more for bread at the grocery store. Is there a way out? I look back in history and I see, I remember gas lines in the 1970s, and we all thought, oh my goodness, when is this going to end? Is this going to end? And obviously it ended. And then we entered a period of prosperity. Is this going to end, or is there something different about this period in history? And I know that I'm asking you to kind of look into a crystal ball, but
Arnold Toynbee wrote, I think, a 10-volume study of history. And he talks about challenge and response as crucial. So this is a man that, has really studied world history. He's a famous historian. And cultures make it when they adapt to their challenges and respond. Cultures fall and fail when they don't meet the challenges that they're facing. I'm writing about this. I'm writing a book right now, and this is part of it, one of the chapters in it. I think to be really honest, I think as a culture, we're in adolescence. I'm going to say a bunch of phrases, and I want you to see what comes to mind. Immediate gratification, no awareness of consequences, self-involved, fantasies of invincibility, can handle feelings. I could go on and on and on. What comes to mind? Well, your teenagers may come to mind. Well, this is also the culture right now. This is politicians right now, not long-term solutions, but short-term fixes to please the people. We're in an adolescence, and it's difficult for adolescents to handle the problems that we're facing right now. We need to grow up and we need to be adults, and we need the people leading us, whether politicians, religious leaders, athletes, to be adults, not to be children and adolescents. So if we don't do that, we're in deeper trouble than we are. But some years ago, I was lecturing on one of my books, The Art of Flourishing in Florida. It was in Florida. Um, my parents, the educational center that they went to. And I had my papers spread out the day before the talk, and my mother got a little nervous. She leaned forward and she said, "You're going to give them some hope, right?" And I said, "Ma, things are worse than we believe, and there's more hope than we know." I really believe that. I believe that anyone out there listening to this or, listening to the news, things are worse than you imagine. I also believe the opposite. There's more hope than any of us can realize. So I think what we have to do is face the challenges, not ostrich policy where our eyes are closed, face the challenges, work together much better than we're working to find those sources of hope. Because I think they're really there and we need to find them, but it's not going to happen magically. Martin Luther King had an interesting line. He said, "Time doesn't heal all wounds, it just marches on." And this is the Einstein thing you hear people in 12-step quoting. Insanity's continuing to do what doesn't work and expecting different results. So if we keep going the way we're going, we're going to keep going in the way we're going. So we need to change, but the change also has to be us working with our neighbors, us coming together, not all this cultural polarization. Again, I'm not blaming either side. I can critique either side, frankly. I'm not doing that. We need to come together in a different sort of way. And a key part of it is empathy and kindness towards each other.
I had mentioned in my introduction, you are a practicing psychologist. Have you seen a difference over the last, let's say, 4 to 10 years in the candor, in the characterization of the people who you talk to on a daily basis? Are things worse now than they have felt for people, or are people feeling things worse now than they did 5 to 10 years ago?
Good question. Absolutely. There's a chapter in the psychotherapy case studies book, Escaping the Prison You Didn't Know You Were In, where I talk about the way the world, there's a new participant in many of my clients' lives, and that's the world. The world is weighing on them in a qualitatively different way than it did before. A lot of times when they're depression, it's not their, dad beat them or their mother this or their husband this or their wife this or their kids this. It's often the situation in the world really hurts them. The assault of negative news all the time, the hunting for what's wrong, the fighting among ourselves, the all of that is really hurting people. And yeah, they are talking about it much more directly, much more avidly, and I can tell that it's really affecting them. And I have to talk about it more because it's one of the participants in the mental health challenges that they're going through.
Interesting. The world is a bigger participant in our lives than it has been before. I'm assuming some of that is the fault, if we say, if we're going to use that word, the fault of the media, the overabundance of information that is available to everyone and just the state of affairs. But I'm going to choose to close with your quote that there's more hope on a very positive note before I let you go. Anything else that you wanted to talk about before I do let you go?
Yeah, try to be gentle. I know it's hard, and I know it's easy. I was at my grandson's lacrosse game months and months ago, and I lost my glasses. And I walked, it was a kind of tournament. So he had multiple short games over a whole afternoon. It was about 2 hours from where I live. And I just retraced my path back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I couldn't find them. And I finally just accepted I'm not going to find them. I've gone 20 times back and forth, every field I was on, looked everywhere. They're nowhere to be seen. I'm going to need to buy another pair of glasses. Okay. And to some degree, I accepted it, or I just was resigned. And then a fascinating and troubling thing happened, which is I wanted to punish myself for my crime of losing them. And because I'm a meditator, I saw the internal monologue that I really want. It was as if I wanted to hit myself to make up for what I did. And I resisted it, but it was incredibly intense. So trust me when I say I understand that out there you want to beat yourselves up if you lost a job. You want to beat yourself up if you were let go of, or if you can't afford, gas, or you can't drive, you can't take your kid to Taekwondo because you can't drive 20 minutes because you don't. I believe me, I empathize. Try to not beat yourselves up. It's extra. It's not the money loss. It's something extra you're adding on that's not going to help. And also try to lean on each other. Try to admit that you're scared or admit that it's hard so you can get a little bit of support back. So you don't have to go through it alone. You don't deserve to go through it alone.
Dr. Jeffrey Rubin will close on that. That is beautiful. You don't deserve to go through it alone. I thank you so much for your insight and for your time and look forward to having you on again.
Thank you so much.